Hey everyone, I'm Pastor Jay and welcome to Simple Church Online. Whether you missed last Sunday, you're checking us out for the first time, or maybe even watching out of state, we're so glad that you're a part of our community. And we're praying today that as you watch, God would use this to bless your life. Enjoy the message.
I'm really excited about this series, and we go through seasons in life, and some of you may be on the mountaintop right now and things are going great. Some of you may be in the valley, and you're dealing with some pain, maybe death, maybe sickness, family issues, you name it. I know the things that we go through. And so my hope is that walking through this Psalm 23, that regardless of where you're at, whether it's on the mountaintop, whether it's in the valley, that you find rest in Jesus. That's the goal. That's the hope of life. Because storms come, circumstances happen, we can't change that, but what doesn't change is Jesus, the same yesterday, today, and forever. And so as we go through this series, I really hope and pray that God speaks to you. Psalm 23, one of the most well-known passages, I would say maybe other than John 3:16, Psalm 23 may be the most popular. It doesn't matter really if you're Christian or non-Christian. Most people have heard it, whether at a funeral or some church service they were at. And it's this famous poem, this famous song that David wrote. But what does it really mean? I was writing down the verses, and I usually use NLT, New Living Translation. I really like that one. Sometimes I'll go back to NIV because that's how I grew up. I went to the NLT and the NIV of Psalm 23, and I couldn't do it. I'm just going to be honest with you. I couldn't do it, so I'm doing the New King James Version, which I've never done before. Got some old schoolers in there, okay? Because I just love the poetry of the way that this one is written. And so Let's read it together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. There's something about that psalm. There's like 9 million psalms. I don't know the exact number. It's not 9 million, but it's close. For some reason, this one stands out. There's just something about it. But what does it mean? What does it mean that he's our shepherd? What was David trying to say? Someone who certainly understood what it means to be a sheep and a shepherd. We want to look at that today. As a matter of fact, throughout Scripture, the Old Testament and the New Testament, we're referred to as sheep. Psalm 103, acknowledge that the Lord is God. He made us, and we are his people, the sheep of his pasture. Matthew 9:35 through 36, Jesus is walking through. It says, he traveled through all the towns and villages of that area, teaching in the synagogues and announcing the good news about the kingdom. And he healed every kind of disease and illness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were confused and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. We're sheep. And that can be cutting sometimes. Sheep are not the smartest, right? To be honest, we're not the smartest. Let's just be honest with ourselves. A few years ago, I read a book by Philip Keller called A Shepherd Looks at Psalm 23. It was written in 1970 by Mr. Keller, and he was a shepherd in East Africa and then became a pastor. And so he has a unique view of Scripture from the mind of a shepherd and a pastor. And so as we kind of go through this series, we're going to use some of the context of what he brings in as far as here's what a shepherd is and what a shepherd does. And so as we learn from David, David certainly understood what it meant to be a shepherd. And we're gonna take our time through this. Well, I want us to really understand what we're saying when we see this psalm, when we say this psalm. This is what it actually means. And so today we're looking at just the first part of the first verse. The Lord is my shepherd. What does that mean? What was David trying to say? That's an important statement right there. The Lord is my shepherd. There's some major questions in life that we have to ask. At some point, every single human has to ask this question, these questions. Is God adequate to be my shepherd? And if so, how do I come under the authority of the shepherd? These are maybe the two most important questions that you'll ever pose in your entire life. When David penned these words, when he wrote these words down, it wasn't so that we could put them on pillows and crochet them and whatever, put them on bumper stickers. Nothing wrong with that. When he makes the statement, the Lord is my shepherd, here's what he's saying. The Lord is my owner. The Lord is my manager. The Lord, he owns me. I no longer have life. It is his life. So it wasn't just this, hey, I'm feeling good. Let's write a pretty little poem. I've got a report due. I got to write a haiku. Here it is. Let's knock this out. No, it was an emphatic statement to the world as he penned this. God is my owner. Yahweh, the God I am, is my owner. He is in charge of me. And most scholars believe that David wrote this psalm later in his years because of the way that it was written. And I have to imagine that he's looking back on his life, thinking about everything that he's done, all the ups and downs of his life, and he begins to write. And David is known as a man after God's own heart, but it's not without some downfalls and some tragedies in his life. Everybody knows David and Goliath, right? He defeats the giant and he becomes super famous. Well, King Saul, who he loved, decides that he didn't like David anymore. So he starts to hunt David down and try to kill him. And David narrowly avoids assassination several times at the hands of Saul. And this was a guy that he respected. He unfortunately has an affair, and because of that, his child dies because of the affair that he had. He had major family problems. You read his life and some of the things that his sons did and the things that he had to walk through with them. At one point, while being a king, he had to flee from his home because people were trying to kill him over and over and over again. And so he has these ups and downs of life, these great wins and mountaintop experiences and these low, low valleys. And he's thinking about his whole life. And he declares, the Lord is the one who watches over me and protects me. He is the shepherd. And I imagine him thinking back to these moments that didn't make sense while he was going through them. He starts to see how big God is, how vast God is. And if you read David's Psalms, you can see that he just out of his soul is this idea that God is so big and so vast and so good and so gracious. And I think sometimes we've lost a little bit of that awe and wonder and might of who our God is. Yahweh, I am. Let's set in context a little bit about who God is. To the best of our knowledge as humans, there are somewhere around 100 billion stars in our Milky Way galaxy. Earth is part of the Milky Way galaxy. 100 billion stars. There are somewhere around 2 trillion known galaxies. I don't know how they know that. It's impressive. Somewhere around 2 trillion known galaxies. So if you average that out, there are somewhere around 200 billion trillion stars, or 200 sextillion stars. Look up that number. It's infinitesimal. We can't even comprehend it, right? It doesn't make sense. Why do I tell you this? Our sun is one of those 200 billion trillion stars, and it's an average star. There are some stars that they've seen that are 100 times the size of our sun. This thing that gives us light, this thing that is so meaningful to us, this thing that sustains life, is a blip in the galaxies and the universe. It's nothing. It's absolutely nothing when you look at it. As a matter of fact, Earth is even less of that. In 1990, Voyager 1 was taking a picture on its way back. And throw that picture up. Some of you may know this. It's called the pale blue dot. That is a picture of Earth suspended in a light beam. It's a dot. It's a speck. And let me encourage you with something today. You are an even smaller speck on that tiny speck. Minuscule. Tiny. Amen, let's go home, right? Do you feel there's some humbling to that? Maybe I'm not as big as I think I am. I'm tiny, insignificant. Yet the God who created this entire universe and placed these things cares about me. When I think about the vastness of God, the vastness of the universe, and the fact that he singularly loves me, it's a bit overwhelming, to be honest. It right-sizes my mind and my life. I love the way that Philip Keller says it. It links a lump of common clay to divine destiny. It means a mere mortal becomes the cherished object of divine diligence. I have worth. And when I think about that, when I think about the God who created it all, I have to say, who really is better equipped to lead me than God himself? He sees it all. He knows my future. He knows what I'm going through right now. He understands why I'm going through that right now. He knows when to comfort me. He knows when to discipline me. He knows when to encourage me. He knows when to embrace me. He knows all. Why would I not want him to lead my life? So often, I try to take control of my own life. I try to shepherd myself. Now, I know I'm the only one. You guys don't do that. I'm the imperfect one. I get that. But we tend to do that. We try to shepherd ourselves. We try to fix everything ourselves. We try to just make it all work ourselves. Can you imagine a sheep pen out just in the middle of the country somewhere, and the sheep are just trying to figure things out for themselves? Oh, Wilbur, I don't know what sheep's her name, right? But just trying to, is that a pig? I don't know, yeah. I was going like Charlotte's Web. I don't know if is there a sheep in there?
Yeah, there is. But
What's his name? Anybody know the sheep's name? Old Sheep? For real? Okay. Can you imagine Old Sheep out there like trying to run the farm, right? Yet for some reason we feel like we can do that. I can run my life. Have you ever tried to run your life and it didn't work out? How much time do we have to share some stories today, right? We'll just have an open mic. Come tell about a time when you tried to run it and it didn't work out, right? We're not equipped to lead. God is. You want to know why people are so mad and angry and sad and depressed and confused? It's because they have this truth of the insignificance of our life, that we can't control our life, but they have no shepherd to go to. That's hopelessness. That's heartbreaking. They're sheep without a shepherd. I told you about this before, but the Jesus Revolution movie, that scene broke me. If you've seen it, he's trying to tell the pastor about hippies. Of course, the pastor's against it because that's how church can be sometimes. And he looks at him and he says, they're sheep without a shepherd. Man, I broke down, man. I'm I try not to cry. I try to pride myself on that. I'm getting a little bit older. It just broke my heart. The hopelessness of that. Can you imagine? Imagine going through this life and thinking this is it. Thinking that everything I go through has no point. The pain that I'm going through, the deaths that I have to witness, the sickness that's permeating our world, the anger, this is it. It's hopeless. And this sheep, am just here to try to do this by myself and figure it out. It's no wonder people are broken. Here's the truth. At the end of the day, God has ownership of me just because he created me. At the end of the day, he created me. He has ownership. And that's enough. But it wasn't even enough for God. It wasn't enough to just create us. Sin separated and we were lost. But God, in his awesome wonder, he sent a Savior to win us back, to pay the price. Isaiah 53:6. All of us, like sheep, have strayed away. We have left God's path to follow our own. Yet the Lord laid on him the sins of us all. So not only am I God's, does he own me because he created me, I'm also God's because he bought me. It wasn't enough just to create me. It wasn't enough just to let me go into my sin and do what I wanted to do because he gave me that free will. He sent Jesus to come back, to pay the price for our souls. That's how much he loves us. Jesus, because he was willing to die, was able to say, I'm the good shepherd. I'm coming to bring a message from God. God himself stepped down into our world to send a clear message. In John chapter 10, Jesus talks about what it looks like to be a shepherd. Verse 11. Jesus says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd sacrifices his life for the sheep. A hired hand will run when he sees a wolf coming. He will abandon the sheep because they don't belong to him, and he isn't their shepherd. And so the wolf attacks them and scatters the flock. The hired hand runs away because he's working only for the money and doesn't really care about the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my own sheep and they know me. Just as my Father knows me and I know the Father, so I sacrifice my life for the sheep. I have other sheep too that are not in this sheepfold. I must bring them in also. They will listen to my voice, and there will be one flock with one shepherd. That's who Jesus is. That's what God did for us. God has every right to lay claim to our lives. In his immense love and goodness, he desires a relationship with creation. Someone would say, why? I don't know. I'm pretty jacked up. I don't know why God would want a relationship with me, but I know that he does. And he went to great lengths to prove that he's the good shepherd and he can be trusted. So that begs a question. Why do so many people, and so many people inside of church right now this very Sunday morning, refuse to give him authority over their lives? One thing about sheep is they're afraid. Sheep are kind of dumb. So they're very fearful. They're prone to attacks. They don't have a lot of, they can bite your knee maybe. They don't have a lot of they can headbutt you, throw a little wool in your eyes. I don't know. They don't have a lot that they can do to protect themselves. So they're very fearful. We're going to learn a little bit more about that in a couple of weeks. We as humans, as sheep, are the same way. One of our greatest fears is the loss of self-authority. We fear that if we give authority to God, we're going to lose our happiness, our joy, our purpose, or whatever. We're going to lose all of these things. As a matter of fact, the atheists that I know and the atheists that I've studied, they simply do not want to be forced to live under the authority of a moral God. That's what it all comes down to. Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris, you read all these guys, it comes down to the fact that they don't want to be under the moral authority of God because they might have to change something. Christopher Hitchens was the same way. They're angry at God because they don't want to be under his authority because they fear that this tyrant God will ruin their fun and joy and happiness. And what I have found is it's true for the atheists and it's true for people who sit in church pews and seats on Sunday mornings. We're afraid that if we really give our life up, if we really change our pursuit, if we really adjust our schedules, if we really do everything that we can to pursue God, that somehow it's going to be joyless and there's not going to be no happiness. There's going to be we just walk with our heads down straight, hoping that we get everything right. And I've seen it play out over and over and over again. However, when we really stop and look at Jesus, when we really look at the scriptures to see who he was, what he represented, we see no tyrant whatsoever. You know what we see in Jesus? We see love, compassion, grace, humility, forgiveness. We see someone who truly wants us to experience life to the fullest. And I'll challenge you with this. If you have not read through the scripture, don't you dare say that Jesus or God is against anything or anyone. Again, our goal as a church, we talked about it, is to change the world's narrative of God by becoming more like Jesus every day. People believe so falsely about who Jesus is, and if we would just read the scripture, we would see what Jesus was really about. As a matter of fact, in about a month, we're going to celebrate Christmas. And I love Christmas. We decorated. It's decked out. The crew did such an amazing job decorating this. Thank you, guys. But why do we celebrate Christmas? All the traditions, all that stuff is amazing. The reason we celebrate Christmas is because the Creator God himself, in an attempt to buy back humanity, comes down to the lowly earth to be born as a baby, feeble, little baby in a manger to some teenagers in a low-class society. Does that sound like a tyrant God to you? No. It shows a God to me who loves so much that he's willing to do whatever it takes to show the world, I love you. I want to lead you. God made it clear to us. And if that wasn't enough just to come down here and say, hey, I love you guys, he went to a cross and he hung on that cross for you and for me. Think about that, specifically for you. Don't world size this moment. For you specifically, Jesus hung on that cross. With all your hang-ups, with your past, with your mistakes, with your sin, with everything he knew you were going to do, he hung on that cross for you. That's who God is. That's who the good shepherd is. Those fears that we have about our lives, they're all man-made, self-created, the enemy speaking lies into our heads. When Jesus calls us to lose our life, it's so that we can truly gain real life through him. The call is not to lose everything and not have fun and be this fuddy-duddy and you're going to just be a curmudgeon and a cotton-headed Ninny-Muggins and whatever thing you want to plug in there that we think about it. He's the good shepherd. He's the one who laid down his life for us. And he's the one who left the 99 sheep to go find the one. You were the one. And he came running to find you. That's who God is. We just have to decide that we're going to give up the authority of our life to him. It's not easy to do. And here's the deal with that. It's not a head knowledge thing. Making the statement, the Lord is my shepherd, is not a head knowledge thing. It's a heart thing. It's a lifestyle thing. It's a daily following thing. It's an outward expression people should see kind of thing. That's what it looks like to give Jesus authority of my life. It's an outward marking of what internally has happened in my life. Philip Keller, he tells in his book of buying his first 30 sheep. And he's sitting there and he worked hard to get them, bought them himself. And he's sitting there with another rancher. And the rancher hands him a knife and says, you know what it's time to do. And this may be squeamish for some of you, but this was what they did back in these days. They would mark the ear of each sheep with a knife. They had a certain symbol that each person had, branding them like you see with cattle or something like that. And so you would have to catch each sheep. You'd have to lay its ear down on a cutting table, and then you'd have to mark your mark into the sheep. Now, yes, is that painful for a minute? Yes, it is. But it also was really, really important so that sheep got lost, they knew who it belonged to. So you could look, even from a distance, you could look and say, that's my sheep. I'm going to go rescue it. I'm going to go get it. They had the mark of the shepherd. Everyone in the town knew who that sheep belonged to. True sheep have the mark of Christ in their life. What does that mark look like? It's the mark of the cross. Now, that doesn't mean wearing it around your neck. It's great if you do. There's a lot of musicians and athletes and different people who wear crosses around their neck, and I don't think it means exactly what it's supposed to mean. It's a call to die to oneself. Jesus, as he walked the earth in Matthew chapter 16, is talking to his disciples, and he said, here's what it looks like. Here's what it looks like to be marked with the cross. Matthew 16:24. Then Jesus said to his disciples, if any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way, take up your cross, and follow me. If you try to hang on to your own life, you'll lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you'll save it. And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world but lose your own soul? Is there anything worth more than your soul? For the Son of Man will come with his angels in glory, the glory of his Father, and will judge all people according to their deeds. Jesus says this is what it looks like to be marked. It's losing your life so that you can actually gain everything. Because what does it matter? Imagine you got every single dollar in this whole world. At the end of the day, what does it matter? You're going to get to have a little more fun for a little while. We are so blinded by the American way, and there's nothing wrong with having success in things. That's fantastic. But if that's the pursuit of our life, we're going to be left wanting for the rest of our life. It never fills. It never sustains. It's never enough. Jesus says, come to me. Lose your life and find real life. And what I found in church so often over and over and over again is that we get the first part. Come to me. Okay, yeah. Now take up your cross daily and follow me. I don't know about that one, Jesus. I might have to reorganize some things in my life. I might have to do things a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit painful. Yeah. There's a little bit of pain when you get marked with Jesus. There's a little bit of pain that comes with that. There's some things that need to change for our benefit. It's never for, God's not up there like, oh, you said yes to me? Here it comes. You ain't ready for this. I'm going to punch you in the face just for the heck of it because I'm God. Like, I think that's what people think. Oh, I said yes to God, so now he gets to just slap me around. No, that's not it at all. God says, come to me. Now let me help you get rid of the things that you don't need, the things that are clouding you, the things that are ruining your life, the things that you think are good, but they're actually bad for you. Let me clean that up so you can experience real life. So many times we can be so focused on our own path. When we truly give up our life, we gain real life. And it's in that real life with the mark of Jesus that we can show other sheep a better way. That's our job. To go out into the world and show the lost sheep that there's a better way. That there is a shepherd who loves them. We live in such a way that more people want to know about the authority in our lives. Why are you the way you are? Let me tell you about the Good Shepherd. We can't simply say, the Lord is my shepherd. Sounds nice. We have to live the reality of that statement. How does it show, how does it prove in your life that the Lord is your owner? If there's not tangible ways, he is not your shepherd. It's just the truth. Jesus himself said that. We've got to live in the reality of that statement. Otherwise, it's a meaningless statement of some of the saddest false hope in the world. As those who represent the shepherd, if you call yourself a Christ follower, I want you to ask yourself some real questions today. Do you truly belong to the shepherd? Do you recognize his right and his authority over you? Remember, this is why we talked about this last week, the idea of authority. It's hard. Do you respond to that authority, and does your life acknowledge his ownership? Could someone look at you and say very clearly, you are not your own, you belong to somebody else? Those are tough questions. That's what it takes to be a sheep in God's flock. But there's also a couple more really important questions, and this is where I think that people miss out on this. Do you find joy and fulfillment in that relationship? It's not a one-sided thing. God, I give up everything for you. There should be joy and fulfillment in that relationship. And I'm telling you right now, if you don't feel joy and fulfillment in God, something got out of whack. Something's not right along the way. You have misunderstood God, or you have not fully gave yourself to God, or something has happened. Because it's one of our core values. We should be the happiest, most joyful people on the face of the planet. I'm a goofy... it's funny to me sometimes that people come to a church that I pastor. It's just funny to me sometimes. And I appreciate it. I love you guys. I don't know what's wrong with you. And if you're new, I hope you'll come back, right? But I'm just this but it comes from this place of I've learned that I just don't care. It's so freeing to live a life where God is my shepherd. I don't have to do it. And I want that for people. And I see so many Christ followers who it's this strain on their life. And I'm like, wow, I don't know what God you're serving or what that relationship looks like, but that sucks. If I can just be honest with you. That's not how it's supposed to be. I'm sorry if someone preached a different gospel to you. That's not who God is, and that's not who Jesus is. He's a God of love and grace and mercy and goodness. And he's a God of discipline too, yes, for my good, for my benefit. I've learned to enjoy the discipline. Is it fun in the moment? No. But then I look back and I'm like, oh yeah, that was going to be a train wreck. Good one, God. Thank you for that, right? I've learned to appreciate those moments because I know that he has the best for me. So I'm fulfilled. I am joyful about my relationship with God. Last question. Do you sense a purpose and a deep contentment because you are under his direction? Do you find that he is all you need? If not, I think you got to reassess this relationship because I think what happens is we're 1 foot in, 1 foot out. We're being pulled by the world, being pulled by God, and then wondering why it doesn't make sense. It's because you're being literally ripped apart. God is doing everything he can to bring you back. He did everything he possibly could through Christ to bring us back, to make it definitive. Not only did I create you, but I'm buying you back at a high price, my only begotten Son. That's how I feel about you. Trust me. Trust me to have my leadership. And I'm going to challenge you. We're creeping into the holiday season now. We're about to get to the new year. We start thinking about life and what we're going to change. Maybe this year is a year to draw the line in the sand, man. Plant the flag and say, I'm doing things different. This rut of the hamster wheel of the American way is not working for me. I'm miserable. There's so many people that I know inside churches who their marriages are failing or they're just unhappy in their marriages. They're passing in the hallway because they're running kids everywhere. And I get that. We do that too. We have those seasons in life, but we've never let it come before God. We've never let it come before the church. I'm not saying we always get it right. I'm just saying we put our flag in the ground. We said this is coming first. And for some of you, it needs to change. We need to give God authority because we trust who he is and what he's going to do with that authority. When we fear his authority, when we're afraid because of what people said or what they've said about God or what some Christ follower has done to us, we push that authority away. But if we will learn to embrace the shepherd, the good shepherd, he will change everything about us. He'll protect us. He'll cover us. He'll bring us joy, the peace that surpasses all understanding. All those things are found in God alone. He loves you. He created you, and he bought you back. That's who the shepherd is. And so when we read those words now, when you hear Psalm 23 start out with the Lord is my shepherd, I hope your mind pauses. And I hope you stop and think, okay, what does that really mean? And who is God to me? And my prayer is that he challenges your heart And if some things need to change, if you need to give it some authority of your life, I'm going to pray that he does that. Is it painful? Yeah, there's some painful stuff that comes along with that. There's some digging in on stuff that we're going to have to change and fix, but that's up to him. That's between you and him. That's the conviction that he brings. Our job is just to say, I'm here. And Jesus says, good. Bring all your burdens. Lay them down here. Take mine. That's a whole lot easier. Stop trying to run the race. Stop trying to just figure the hamster wheel out. Let it go. Give up authority. Trust me and see if I don't change everything about your life. That's the promise that God gives to us. And my prayer for you is that you take on that challenge.
Once again, thank you for stopping by today. We'd love for you to be a part of our family at one of our services. You can find out all of our information at simplechurchtulsa.com. And we'd love to pray for you any way we can. So please message us, and we hope you have a great week.